The Sims 3 is one of my favorite games, and I've been posting videos about it for 7 years! Oh my... Ignoring how long that is, the channel has recently gotten a bunch of new subscribers. Hi everyone! Welcome! With an increase of new people, there has been an increase of questions. Now, I love questions, but answering the same questions a bunch of times is not really, well, time efficient. So I took a break from gameplay to put together this video and answer some of the larger questions that I have seen pop up at least once or twice. Those topics can basically break down into how do you get your game to run so smoothly and where do you get your CC. The main focus of this video is probably going to be on CC because, to be honest, a lot of the steps to improve the game's performance have been the same for years. It could seem like a lot at first glance for some of the steps that are going to be suggested, but just keep in mind that you really only have to do a lot of this once, and once it's all done, you're set. Now, I found a guide by a user called Anime Boom on Steam done some years back, and it pretty much includes all the stuff that I would probably suggest most people do to their game, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. I will also list off the stuff that I personally have done, because this guide does list some stuff that I haven't done, and I can't speak to that, really. I'm not really going to go into details on how to do this stuff though, because if you couldn't tell by me being able to find a guide written literal years ago, it's absolutely been done before. I'm basically getting to the point where there's plenty of wonderful simmers out there, I'm sure, who have done guides, probably even here on YouTube, on how to do a lot of these steps. It really is pretty routine at this point if you want to play The Sims to do a lot of these steps, so I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel here. Disclaimer before we go into this discussion, I'm not saying that if you do all this stuff that your game will run with no issues. The Sims 3 as it exists just has issues. These steps will not make it so that your game never crashes or that you have no bugs. They'll just help you maintain some stability. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of this stuff I have done before, and I kind of basically never really have any unexpected crashes anymore. It does happen, though. Very rarely, but it does happen, and it's normally because I've been playing for like an extended period of time, or I just installed something that probably conflicts with something else. In terms of performance, was represented in this guide that I linked. Again, I didn't do everything on the list. You can pick and choose what you want to be comfortable with. I can't really speak to the stuff that I didn't do, but here's what I know that I have done to my own personal game. Set up the game to recognize your graphics card. This is something that I did manually. I do think the guide suggests that there is a program that does this now. Can't really speak to that. It didn't exist last time I set my Sims game up. I did this all myself. I edited the files, which I do think there is a link on how to do this manually yourself if you prefer to do it that way, but sounds like there might be a program there for that. I can't speak to it though. Allow the game to use more VRAM. This is a step that I've done. I can't say if it absolutely makes things better or not, but I've definitely done it. Making the game use more CPU, I've done that too. I do play the game in borderless window mode, and actually if you're ever interested in recording The Sims 3, I highly recommend this step because recording this game in full screen mode, which is how I used to record it when I first started doing videos on the channel. I use OBS, by the way, to record, but if you're doing that, The Sims 3 has it's really dark when you're grabbing it for screen capture, and I think from everything I've read, it's just because the game has some bad color happening, and instead of fixing that, it just basically does color correction filters that OBS does not see when it's in full screen mode, so it looks really bad. If you put it in borderless window mode, it actually can capture the screen in the correct colors. It's a whole lot better. I highly recommend just doing it for that reason if you're ever interested in recording. Just a tip from me there, because it definitely makes a whole lot of a difference. Limit the FPS. This one's actually pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to do. Definitely recommend you do it. Clean up the DC backups folder. I pretty much never install anything through my launcher either. I don't think this is important if you don't do stuff to the launcher, but I could be misspeaking because I stopped using my launcher pretty much a long time ago, but I think it's definitely important if you have store content. Basically, there's a bunch of crap in there you don't need. Don't be afraid to delete it, but, follow the guide. Make sure you pay attention to what they're saying, because there's at least one file in there that's important. Lazy Duchess's Smooth Patch. I absolutely would recommend this one. Lazy Duchess's Adler Lake Patch. This step is absolutely required if you have a 12th gen processor. I do think EA might have released a patch for the Origin version of the game. I do play my game through Steam, so I can't really speak to the origin version of the game or how well that works, but I do use Lazy Duchess's patch for my game, and it does work very well. The DXVK fix. This one, I suppose, is a little bit experimental, and it's actually not listed in the guide that I'm gonna have there, but I feel like I have certainly experienced less crashes after doing this. If you didn't know, one of the main issues with The Sims 3 is that it's a 32-bit game and it's capped at 4 gigs of RAM usage. And normally, when it does crash, it's a result of hitting that cap. Even if your computer has more RAM to use, this game cannot really utilize it. This fixes or reduces the amount of RAM that the game uses by having it use more VRAM, which is the RAM in the graphics card, I believe. So this can cause some issues from everything I've read on this post if you use Reshade or Gshade, and I think it can be fixed by just reinstalling it. I use Reshade, and I also use this, and my Reshade does work, so it's very possible to do. And it also says that there's issues with the Adler Lake patch, possibly conflicting with the way the game boots, but I completely skipped my launcher altogether, so I just may not have ever experienced this issue because I don't even use my launcher. I just boot the game straight from the executable. That's just the way I've always done. I feel like I've experienced less crashes since I've done this. It is a bit experimental. My advice in any of these scenarios is take backups of all your files, because if you mess something up, it is normally very much fixable as long as you have that original file, because you're going to kind of be fiddling with files at some point. As long as you take a copy, stick it on your desktop in a folder somewhere or whatever of just the default file, you can put them back, and normally that'll probably fix any issues that you have. So don't be afraid to be experimental with your game. Just make sure you're cautious about it. I would recommend this step though. I think it has improved my gameplay. And the last one are NROS mods. I can't recommend these enough. If you are a player who is against using mods, I know some people don't really like using them, I would suggest you actually set your game up just to use some of these for performance alone. That's pretty much the bulk of what I've done to my game. I mean, a lot of this stuff, like I said, it seems like a lot going through the guide and reading it, but you really only have to do it once. Like, I don't have to do any of this stuff anymore, and I really couldn't tell you how. Again, that's kind of why I'm not explaining it here, because I did it years ago, and I have not had to think about doing it again since then, so I would be a very bad source of explaining it to you right now. But these guides have been lovingly written by other players in the past to help guide people who want to get into the game, or who maybe are getting a new PC and have to do all these steps again. But it seems like a lot. I highly recommend you do it if you're interested in playing The Sims 3. You only have to do it once. Just keep that in mind. With that though, let's segue over into CC, which I think the big question most people ask about this, at least whenever I see it come up, is where do I get my CC from? Now, before we go fully into this section, and there is a pretty straightforward answer to that question, I do want to answer one more question that's been asked a couple times, which is, will you put your entire CC folder up for download? The answer to that question is no, but let me explain before you click out or quit the video or leave or whatever. I want to explain because I do think it's important. In my opinion, games, especially older games like The Sims 3, they normally survive in large part because of the community of creators that are involved with it. This includes CC creators who are typically doing a lot of this stuff for free. One of the most rewarding things that you can get are people showing appreciation for what you've put out there. Even as something as giving their downloads a like, or them seeing that number of downloads going up can be super encouraging. And if you download it from me, they're not going to see that. I would much rather spread the love and even introduce people to these creators, because I don't download everything that they create, and they may have something that you would be interested in. For that reason, I don't feel comfortable sharing an entire folder of CC that was not created by me, when instead, I can teach other people where to go to find it and help to expand that network of creators to the people who use their content. I also feel like a lot of creators are just really kind and helpful in general, so if you ever wanted to learn how to do something or create your own content someday, I do feel like a lot of them would be very willing to help to spread that knowledge. And I think I could be wrong. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I feel like if you want the community to be alive, then you want to encourage more people to engage, and the more people who do engage, the better. So that's my spiel on that. I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's talk CC. So the short answer to the question of where do I get my CC from, it's Tumblr. That's the short answer. I know you're probably thinking, Tumblr's still alive? Yeah, it is. And I pretty much have always used it as like a CC Sims 3 site. For a long time, I think the go-to was like Blogger or something. I don't really remember, but eventually it shifted to Tumblr, and as far as I'm aware, at least for The Sims 3, is still one of the best active communities for this game. It also gives a lot of flexibility for people who share their own and other people's creations in the form of reblogging someone's posts to your own blog. Now, if you're newer to the channel, you may not know, but a while back, I completely redid my CC from the ground up. Like, I nuked the whole folder and started over. Mostly because the way I maintained my CC was, at the time, really messy, and I started to have some issues with my game, which I do think CC management is important for your own sanity, as well as maintaining the stability of your game. As I was rebuilding this folder, like 90% of the stuff I downloaded came from Tumblr, and I made it a point to start a side blog specifically for tracking what I downloaded to be able to go back to these links if anyone wanted to know where the item I got came from. I'll make sure to leave a link to this blog in the description, and I'll add it to my signature thingy so that it appears on every video. But if you're really interested in something that you see in my game, there is a high possibility that it can be found on this blog. With that, I am going to briefly go over how I maintain my CC because it might help you navigate the madness of my blog. I use CC Magic to help manage my CC. I'll leave a link to this program in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. I recommend it. The short of it is that it allows me to separate my CC into different configurations or buckets of content, and then I can change which bucket is active when I load the game to play. Right now, I use mainly 3 buckets: General, Modern, and Fantasy Medieval. General, meaning that I'll probably use most of the items here no matter what save I'm playing, stuff like hair, skin, eyes, and some decorations or objects. Modern, meaning that I will probably only use this if I'm playing in, well, a modern setting and it's mostly clothing and build buy mode stuff. And if it's not obvious, Fantasy Medieval is the same as Modern, just for when I feel like I want to be playing in a D&D game. The reason I described all that to you is because I organize my CC in a similar way, and it might help direct you when you want to find something. Ultimately though, I will always try to help you out, so if you're looking for something that I have and you can't find it on my blog, leave me an ask and I'll do my best. Fair warning though, I do go through chunks of time where I just don't check Tumblr regularly, so be aware if you leave me an ask there and I don't immediately respond. I'm not ignoring you, I probably just haven't checked Tumblr in a while. A couple more points I want to talk about before I end the video, and these are the last ones, I swear. I don't want this to be too long. I've learned the importance of keeping my CC organized, and it makes it a lot easier to maintain. I mentioned how CC Magic works with different configurations, but I go a step further and I actually have a tagging system for the individual packages. So yes, I have added my own tags to the beginning of all 5,855 package files at the time of doing this video that are in my CC Magic folder. You don't have to do this, but since this video is touching a bit on how I personally maintain my game, I thought I'd mention it. I find that if I wanted to remove a specific package or find something for some reason and I don't want to do that through CC Magic, this just makes it a bit easier because I can get an idea of where it probably is among this chaos. And the last point I want to make, in a quick distinction before I explain, I know that everything that is modifying the game is a mod, but in my brain, mod is something that changes or adds functionality that is not a part of the original game. Everything else, I just call it CC. That probably doesn't make any sense because I know that they are all the same thing, but when I say mod, I'm thinking more script mods that actually make the game or Sims behave differently, like on the lighter end, something like automatically disabling something that the Sims would do autonomously, to as aggressive as the NROS mods. Those are mods to me. Skin, hair, and eyes, things that are like functionally or only cosmetic, are CC. The only exception for that being like default replacements, which are a bit more important because you can only have one at a time and are really important to keep track of. Dumb distinction, I know, is just the way that my brain separates the two, and I just wanted to say that because I do keep mods separate, at least what I consider mods separate, and default replacements, out of CC Magic. These are all installed in my packages folder like the traditional way, and yes, they are also organized into different folders that I swap out depending on which save that I'm playing. I have default replacements that I use all the time, some that I only use when I'm playing my medieval fantasy style. Same with the mods, you get the point. I tailor make the CC that my game will be using based on the game I'm about to play. Again, you don't have to go this far, but I will say that 99% of the times when I have personally had an issue with my game, it's something that I categorize as a mod and not a cosmetic item. That is not to say that cosmetic mods can't cause an issue, because they absolutely can, so don't throw them out completely, but keeping them separate, it just makes it easy to troubleshoot, because I have a lot less of those like core mods or script mods than I do have cosmetic mods, and like I mentioned, most of the times it's one of the script mods or some other type of mod, and not necessarily like a hair or skin that's causing my issue. In other words, just be aware of what you're downloading. And in fact, the last tip, and then I'm done for real, I keep a folder that I call testing, where I drop new stuff that I download for a while before I completely integrate it into my massive CC Magic folder, just to make sure that it doesn't cause any issues or that I even really want to keep it. You don't have to do that either, just another tip. Alright, I'm done babbling, I'm serious this time. If you're wondering, no, I haven't recorded the next sim video yet. I was playing some other games, and I was also building a mall. That's probably some of the footage you're going to be seeing in the background of this video, because I get in a buildy mood sometimes, and then I spend like weeks making a single build, and it gets a little bit ridiculous. But I have been meaning to do this video for a while, because I do get the occasional question, and I wanted to put my thoughts into a consolidated place in a format that is befitting of the channel, and maybe it can be seen a bit easier when those questions come up. So, thank you all so much for watching. And if you like this video, then please give it a like, or don't. That's up to you. But I do hope that you'll come back and join me for more Sims videos here on the channel. Thank you all. Bye-bye.